Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Standard Definition, the retro nostalgia podcast here on the Boss Rush Network. I am one of your hosts, Corey Dirrig, and for this entry of Standard Definition, we are wrapping up our ranking Indiana Jones in review. Joining me, as always, is the joy of EXP Cast and Crossroads, Stoy Jovic.
How's it going?
Eating his ice cream.
Just eating my Culver's concrete mixer, man. Living the dream.
He's putting creamy deliciousness in his mouth.
Cookie dough pieces and brownie pieces. I remember the day when I discovered that you could like mix two ingredients, two like toppings, and not have to pay extra for it. Probably one of the best days of my life. Somewhere around the day I got married too. So that kind of fits somewhere. It's somewhere in there. I don't.
Ice cream's better.
I'm not gonna say out loud where. I'm not gonna say out loud where, just in case my wife is actually listening to me right now. But
she knows. She knows how you.
She knows when you sleep. She'll figure it out.
Also joining us is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Matthew Kiel, freshly shaven, no facial hair.
No, that's like a couple of days ago, actually.
Oh my gosh, a couple days.
There's actually still some left. I didn't go completely clean, despite the way I look on video. Hi, how are you?
It's been a minute.
I don't have. I know. I don't have any ice cream or anything. I just ate like a whole bunch of pizza, so now you're gonna get food coma, Matt, as well as. Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, or the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
We're gonna do it.
It's been a while since we've recorded, although for the listeners, it'll only be about a month.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's fine. So,
weird that we took 15 years to get to this one, huh?
I mean, at the rate we're doing MCU, it's going to take us about 4 years to do it all. So, I mean,
yeah,
it's
fine.
And that's if they stop releasing stuff today.
Yeah. Look, we should have probably come up with a better calendar / plan for these things, but we just kind of record when we record.
We are all adults. We all have jobs. We all have families.
We all got lives. We all got lives.
Yeah.
You know, we ain't getting paid for this. At least I'm not. I don't know if you guys are. But...
No, I'm not.
No, I'm paying to be here. Someone's charging me to be here.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Okay, so before we get started, we have to do the thing where we thank our Patreon producers. We have started doing that. So I know this episode isn't coming out until May, but we're recording in April. So we are reading our March benefactors tonight.
Okay.
So just so everybody knows, just kind of like a quick housekeeping thing, we do record Standard Def about a month in advance because we want to be ahead on episodes. That way, if anybody needs a week off or we need to reschedule something, we have that wiggle room. So
sure,
I like to make our patrons aware. We are recording in April, so we will be reading March's patrons. So, wait, where'd it go? I just had the list. There we go. Found it. I nailed it, guys. First try. All right. So remember, if you go to patreon.com/BossRushNetwork at the $5 tier, you can be a producer benefactor where we read your name off as a producer of this show and many others that we do here on the Boss Rush Network. We would like to thank Adrielle Munger, Rebecca Jewell, and even though she doesn't know, my wife.
My wife.
I can't say that I'm a producer of the show. That's just rude.
Yeah.
So I'm saying my wife produces the show mostly because
I would argue that you could.
I could,
considering.
But I'm not going to read my name. I said at the beginning. It's fine. Plus, my wife graciously lets me do this, whenever I need to at night. So she gets the shout out. So thank you for supporting us at the $5 level. If you want your name read, you can also support us there. Or you can get the show 2 weeks early for just $1, along with After Dark and Expansion Pass. So Gentlemen, we're not here for our health. We're here to discuss the fourth and, as of right now, final Indiana Jones film. Although Indiana Jones 5, as of this recording, just wrapped filming. Who's excited?
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what that means? We're going to have to do this again.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Here we go again.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it the weekend it comes out. We're all gonna go see it. We're all gonna drive to each other and be like, "Hey, Indiana Jones." Probably not, but that's the dream.
That'd be dope.
Indiana Jones.
Holy crap! Antonio Banderas is in it.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. This is a big movie.
Yeah.
No Shia LaBeouf though.
Good.
Oh darn.
I actually liked him in this. All right, we're discussing Indiana Jones: Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I know a few of us have some unpopular opinions on this movie, but that's okay. This movie was released on May 20th, 2008, directed again by Steven Spielberg. The summary is in the height of the Cold War, famous archaeologist Indiana Jones, played again by Harrison Ford, returns from his latest adventure, finds out his job at Marshall College is in jeopardy. He meets Mutt, played by Shia LaBeouf, a young man who wants Indy to help him find the legendary crystal skull of Akator, and the pair set out for Peru. However, deadly agent Irina Spalko, played by Cate Blanchett, is searching for the powerful artifact too, because the Soviets believe it can help them conquer the world. So that is the overall picture, but there is so much more to this movie, guys. So much more. This movie had a huge budget, a budget of $185 million, which I'm sure like a third of that went to Harrison Ford's bank account himself. It actually did pretty well at the box office.
And his medical bills. Didn't he get hurt? Didn't he get hurt pretty bad in this one?
Yeah, he was flying a plane and he got hurt and they had to stop production.
That was it. Okay, all right. Yeah.
It was this, and then Episode 7 of Star Wars. He was also flying his plane and wrecked it again. So he got in like 2 plane crashes within 4 years of this.
Take a hit, man.
He's Harrison Ford. Dude.
I mean, that's pretty amazing, dude. That's pretty amazing. Like even like in Crystal Skull, he did the majority of his own stunts.
Yeah, like
pretty amazing. You know, I mean, obviously there's some that are like, yeah, I don't believe you did that, but you know,
like when he was like climbing the rafters in that opening scene
and hopping from like rafter to rafter, or even that long scene where like he jumps on that chain and drops down like 20 feet and just kicks that dude through the window.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, that ain't you, Harrison Ford, but
yeah,
I mean, so cool.
This movie did almost $800 million at the box office though, which is pretty impressive, I think, for an Indiana Jones film. At this stage, right? Because obviously, at this point we're doing MCU review, and at this point, none of the MCU movies have broken like $600 million at the box office. So this did better. This did better than Iron Man and Incredible Hulk, which also came out that year, which is pretty big, I would say. Obviously, MCU wasn't as big as it is now, but still.
Sure.
Also, none of this is owned by Disney at this point.
Yeah.
Other notable movies, Matt. I assume you have a music list for this.
I don't. I've had so little time over the past, but yeah. Well, actually, hang on.
Fail.
What
All right,
2008. I could probably find some stuff. Give me a second.
You're looking for 2008, I'm gonna give out the other notable movies and notable games of that year. Notable movies: The Dark Knight, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Wanted, Disney's Bolt, Twilight, Hurt Locker, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Rambo, Rent, and Madagascar 2 were some of the big movies that year. Notable games: Fallout 3, Mario Kart Wii, Grand Theft Auto 4, Gears of War 2, Little Big Planet, Dead Space, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, God of War Chains of Olympus, Burnout Paradise, Mirror's Edge, Left 4 Dead, Braid, Tomb Raider Underworld, Fable 2, and Persona 4.
Some bangers right there, man.
Yeah. That was a good year for games.
That's some bangers, yeah.
Bangers. Left 4 Dead, I sunk a lot of time in. A lot.
Out of this list, I played a lot of Chains of Olympus. I bought a PSP for Chains of Olympus.
Yeah.
So, I think there's that red PSP with Kratos' face on the back, or maybe it was silver and Kratos was red or something.
No, it was red. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was I put a lot of time into Fable 2. I do know that. What were you listening to in 2008 there, Matt?
Oh, geez.
I can tell you what I was listening to. I just Googled. I just Googled some.
What were you listening to, Stoy?
Death Magnetic came out, the Metallica's album. That kind of put them back on the put them back to the top because Saint Anger came out like years before, and just like it landed with a dud, like a huge dud. Like we know what you're trying to do, but it's not working. So Death Magnetic came out and just blew the lid off, and just like, okay, all right, we know, okay, we get it now. Trivium is another metal band that I listen to. Released probably one of their best albums still to this day. It's Shogun. And do you guys know Amon Amarth? It's Viking metal.
I do.
Viking metal. So they came out Twilight of the Thunder God. And that's probably one of their best albums too. So that was it was good for me. It's good for metalheads, you know.
So 2008 was actually an interesting year. There were a lot of groups that came back after a long time. David Byrne and Brian Eno released their collaboration album, Everything That Happens Will Happen Today, and that's the follow-up to their, it was the follow-up to their 1984 album called My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. Both are absolutely worth your time, and you should listen to them. Cut Copy released their second album, which was basically an album of hit singles almost, or at least it could have been if they released them all as singles. It's called In Ghost Colors. Very good dance pop from Australia. No Age released their second album. I believe it was called Nouns. That was a pretty indie noisy metal. Portishead followed up their 90. I feel like it had been 10 years since their second album. This is their third album. It was titled Third, and it's lovely. Fleet Fox's debut full length came out. They're one of my favorite kind of indie folk bands. They're still going today. It is called, I believe it's just called Fleet Foxes. It was self-titled. The debut of the band Fuck Buttons. Street Horsing, which is a very good droney electronic album. I'm not making that up. Corey's like,
Fuck Buttons.
Yes. The Walkmen came out with their one of their best albums, In You and Me. And then one of my favorite post-hardcore bands called Fucked Up from Canada released The Masterful Chemistry of Common Life. Plenty of others came out, like Erykah Badu released an album called New America Part 1. Lindstrom released an album, Where You Go, I Go Too. Lil Wayne's The Carter 3 came out. Lots of good music in 2008.
Let's go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Music, everybody. Music. Somebody tagged me in a Twitter post that it's like, name your 5 favorite albums. I'm like, why
can you name 5 albums?
I probably not.
And to just limit it to 5, it's like I almost feel like I would have to have 5 albums from all different subgenres instead of just labeling 5 from one genre. It's just, I don't know. It's hard.
It was I think it was Mark Carabin from Secret Friends. I was like, Mark, I love you, but I'm not the music guy. You should not have tagged me in this post.
Corey is the video store clerk in the movie Clerks who goes, can you recommend something? I don't watch movies.
That's fair. I've never seen that movie, but I believe
Have you heard anybody talk about movies? I find it best to stay out of other people's affairs.
Well, we're not here to make fun of my lack of music interest. We're here to talk about Kingdom of Crystal Skull. Overall thoughts on this film. Matt, I'm going your way first because I'm thoroughly interested. Because I remember liking it when it came out. I watched it one time after, but it's been years since I've seen this film. Probably longer than I actually realized that I've seen it. But watching it again recently, I have new and re-emerging thoughts. But what do you think of this?
So I think this is probably the first time I've seen this since it came out. So I did see it in the theater in 2008. And it kind of made me think about the life I've had in the last almost 14 years at this point.
I can't believe it's been 14 years. First of all,
at that point I was married for only a year to my first wife. I hadn't even considered going back to school yet, and I was not so much has happened since then. I went to school, got a career, got divorced, got remarried, and I've watched friends come and go. One of the people, one of my best friends, Jason, he and I believe this was before he moved to. Well, he had a brief stint in London and then moved to LA. He and I saw this, I believe, together, and now he's married with a child, and he's about to graduate nursing school. So much has happened since this movie came out.
Yeah.
And I'll be 100% honest. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I actually found myself I found myself kind of turning off my brain and just letting things happen. Mm-hmm. And I think if I did that for more movies, I'd probably be less of a dick about movies. But also, anytime Shia LaBeouf is on screen, I'm just not happy anymore. I don't like looking at him at all. But no, this movie is really fun, and despite some of the topics that come up in the movie, I found it just a popcorn eating good time.
Yeah. This movie kind of feels especially relevant today for some reason. Kind of a kind of way, Stoy, what about you? I know we kind of talked before we started recording about your feelings on this movie.
Yeah, and I mentioned it before how they, I think I mentioned it before how I loved Marion. She was one of my favorite characters in the whole series of movies because she, she's strongly independent and, kind of a badass. And she was kind of taken down a few pegs in this one, kind of being more of a damsel in distress. But I kind of, looked through a different lens when I watched it a second time, and I was like, okay, maybe I was a little bit too, I guess I over exaggerated it. She had her moments in the movie where she was, but a lot of times I felt like her presence in the movie was to just take down Indiana Jones a peg or two, all the time. At the very least, they had a really good dynamic in Raiders of the Lost Ark where they were just two arrogant people going back to each other. But in this one, I always felt every time she went at Indiana Jones, he was always whoa, whoa, he was he had no kind of quirky little quips to kind of go at her for. He was defending himself, doing his thing, but he seemed more kind of a bumbling idiot, more so in this movie. But when he was in scenes by himself, certified badass, especially at his age, of just we talked about before recording, this man did his own stunts, for the most part of the movie. So he's still able to kind of do a lot of these scenes, but ultimately I knew what they were going for with the story, and I knew I don't know. Like I suppose we can get to it when we talk about kind of the specifics of the story, but I lost a lot of the groundedness from the original trilogy. And I think the time space between the last movie and this movie, like 15 years or something like that. You know, cinema has come such a long way where now we make movies completely differently now, as opposed to, you know, how we used to make them in the, you know, 80s and 90s. So there was such a time shift. And I know like Steven Spielberg like wanted to make it as authentic as possible. And I think even to the point where I think he wanted his film crew to like study the original trilogy with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that they would nail every scene just right, so that there was no change.
Yeah.
You know, to people like us who have grown up watching the original trilogy, you know, but I don't think they nailed that. I think really just cinema has like come too far to the point where it's like, you know, we lost a lot of that magic that the original trilogy had.
Yeah. I mean, to what you said, I feel like there were a lot of scenes that actually did do it, but then there were scenes like the jungle car scene chase, right? Or, you know, that Shia LaBeouf fencing or swinging from the from the vines just didn't do it, right? Just
or even like that like nuclear, I mean, the nuclear test site thing, like that was just mind-boggling. Like to me, like why put that in there? And, you know, just like, you know, the whole little clip of like, oh, he's in a lead fridge. That's going to protect them. Like, okay. Like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's no more ridiculous. That's no more ridiculous.
The science very thin.
Very thin.
That.
Yeah, but that's no more ridiculous than them jumping out of an airplane in a raft and sledding.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, that's...
But the first thing he does when he gets out of the fridge, what does he do? He walks toward the mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
This man should have died from radiation poisoning.
Exactly. He's
walking out of that fridge.
He's in the blast radius. Like that's
first thing he does. Gets out of the fridge, walks toward the mushroom cloud, and he's like, "Wow, look at that!" Like nothing in your head is like, "I probably should keep running."
Yeah.
I mean, if he was able to run in a straight line, because you saw how that fridge was tumbling, man, that dude should have like cracked his vertebrae like all up and down.
He has maybe 3 spinous processes that are intact in his body after that fall. Not to mention, you know, shoulders are probably out of socket.
Yeah.
Yep. Neck has been just
I mean, his knees have to be somewhat shattered.
But to your point, Corey, obviously this man dropped out of a moving plane, dropped like probably hundreds and hundreds of feet down to a mountainside just on a raft.
With 2 other people.
That this
which
man
goes
should
over
have
a waterfall.
Yeah. This man should have 10 broken pelvises.
Yes. Indiana Jones is the original Bionic Man, but it's all from medical stuff, not from technological advances.
Right, yeah. So that's what would really take me out of it, because there are great moments in there where there's really good, grounded, realistic, you know, scenes of like Indiana Jones being Indiana Jones when he's investigating, you know, charts and ruins and stuff like that. But then you got these fantastical elements that are just like way out left field, and I'm just like, it took me out, you know. So
yeah. I mean, there's definitely a few scenes in this movie where I was like, it took me out of it, but like the scenes that were like Indiana Jones were really good for me. Yeah. I think, right? Like, I think, and we'll get into the specifics later, but I think like the things that didn't do it for me were Shia LaBeouf swinging from vines in the jungle, right?
I had a problem with Shia LaBeouf in general.
That was just like, what are you even doing here? Okay, whoa, monkeys! I'm gonna swing like the monkeys. That's nope.
I mean, just for the fact that his name is Mutt, and you know, we get the end of then we named the dog Indiana, so we're naming the grandchild Mutt now.
I mean, I didn't have as big of a problem with Shia LaBeouf as you guys did. I think I actually like really liked him, and at least the first half of this movie, I really liked him actually. Like when he pulls up on the motorcycle on the train platform. Which, first of all, how'd you get a motorcycle on the train platform? First of all, but
there were so many of those like scene-breaking scenes where like, how is there an entire Soviet army on a United States military installation in the first place? How the hell does that happen?
I liked him in that, or I thought that was a weird scene, but like I liked him. I wanted like how did Indiana Jones get off the train while it was moving? Right? Did he stop the train or did he just jump off? Like where was that scene at? I didn't care for the ending, which Matt, I know you and I have talked about this several times. Of like the end of that movie is just like a CG fuckfest of like, it just. The CG
Forget how it's made. What they say is just fucking asshole-ish, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I actually didn't really buy Cate Blanchett as the villain.
Really. Oh, no. She's a great actress, but that accent was god-awful.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And as someone who is around people who speak Russian frequently, it's like... Mm-hmm. I have kind of picked up on like what it's supposed to sound like and what bad American Russian sounds like, and it's like she's not very good, and her wig is terrible. Yeah. It's just the fakest looking bear I've ever seen.
I think with a lot of see the problem. Well, I shouldn't really say the problem. One thing that this movie does a lot, it relies on pointing. It relies on references way too much, like the Shia LaBeouf swaying through the trees with the monkeys. That's Douglas Fairbanks. That's the guy from Cyrano de Bergerac or whatever. I forget his name.
De Bergerac.
Yeah, him. That is, Errol Flynn from the silent film era. Cate Blanchett is Louise Brooks. Like they're just playing up references throughout, and none of it. It's just there to sort of like, hey, we've watched movies before. Or at least that's what it feels like, rather than actually sort of servicing. Mm-hmm. Like the cool thing about Indiana Jones is you can kind of point to where it comes from without it being from novels specifically or other films. And this is like the most. We're just going to reference a whole bunch of other things. It's the most Quentin Tarantino thing that has ever really come out of this movie or out of this franchise, and it is kind of off-putting. But yeah. I kind of agree on all points.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I didn't mind that like the Soviets were the villains. It actually didn't bother me as much as like.
It made sense for the time period.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. It definitely like. Okay, this feels like a natural progression from the Nazis, right? From the original trilogy, right? This obviously the Soviets in the 50s and 60s are like the bad guys or whatever, but like her being the villain just did not buy it at all. But overall, I do really enjoy this movie. I had so much fun watching this movie last night. I thought I was gonna put it on and like. Pick up some things that we could talk about today and like, I might fall asleep while I watch this on the couch or something. I don't know, maybe not. But I felt invested the entire movie and stayed up for the entire movie, and I was invested and happy and excited. So let's talk about some of the characters in this movie. Obviously, Harrison Ford reprises his role as Indiana Jones. I thought he was pretty spot on, like just falling right back into this character, right? I think I have always been of the opinion of like, oh yeah, you could probably plug someone else in Indiana Jones and it'd be just as good. Or you know what? I think I might have to retract that statement a little bit. Not like entirely, because I think if you find someone who has the right personality and the right mannerisms and way they can deliver quips and stuff, it could work. But it's got to be someone very specific to the point where, like, if they made Indiana Jones 6 or whatever and it didn't have Harrison Ford in it and it didn't pan out, it would be really just, maybe you should just retire Indiana Jones at this point. But I loved Harrison Ford. I like old grumpy Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know we talked about this before, that you don't need to keep pushing making these movies. Like, at least in my opinion, if they'd have stopped at Last Crusade, I'd have been fine with it, and on a high note, and just riding off into the sunset. And if you want to tell other stories within that universe, or even attempting a reboot, that's kind of, I mean, that kind of stuff really divides the fan base. But I mean, you could, there's so many stories you could tell within that universe that, or even like, I think we talked about bringing back young Indiana Jones, maybe. But it's one of those things, like, they could have ended it, but with him being so iconic and Harrison Ford still being able to do this, even in his 70s. And I saw a picture of him on the set of Indiana Jones 5, and I was like, wow, he's kind of still looks good in the fedora and the leather jacket, and it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, part of me is like hopeful anticipation, but kind of reserved a bit.
Yeah. I I mean, he still looks like Indiana Jones in this movie. Like,
yeah, he really does.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's probably always going to.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. It's just like, I mean, like you said, I'm looking at the pictures on set of Indiana Jones 5 right now, and he, like, sure, he looks older and, like, whatever, but he's totally still Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, I wonder how much running around and stuff he's going to be doing, but he definitely still, I mean, iconic.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you decide to do another movie, you should just hold off for a decade or two or something.
I mean, I think they either have to, from this point on, they either have to, if and when Indy 5 comes out, they have to hand this off to somebody else, or they have to really incline that this is the last one, or they just have to stop.
Yeah.
Like they just have to stop.
Yeah. We can talk about this at the end of the show. I wonder how they're going to do that. I want to know, like, it's going to be a topic at the end of the episode, kind of just to wrap up the ranking of, like, what do we want from Indiana Jones 5 and beyond. But, like, I think it's a discussion worth having, at least. Obviously Indiana Jones isn't as big as something like Star Wars or Marvel at this point, or even Star Trek and whatever else is popular these days, right? But, like, it's still on a level where, like, people are going to get mad if you recast Harrison Ford in this role.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. And I almost say at that point, don't even, just retire it. That's it.
Yeah. It's a weird franchise where it's kind of like right in the middle of, like, yeah, if we did one, it would probably make us money. But I don't think it's a small enough franchise to just straight up retire, especially for Disney, right? I mean, I know they invested in Lucasfilm for Star Wars, but this is a franchise that they own and will probably want to continue at some point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Any other words about Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones in this movie?
Like I said before, what always bugged me about his role is his bouncing back and forth between character roles of, just like, in one scene he's the confident, archaeologist adventurer that we've come to know, but then, like, the next scene he's like a bumbling doofus, and then the next scene he's like kind of like a slapstick comedian. And, like, I felt like they wrote those multiple, I mean, I don't want to say multiple personalities, but, like, multiple character traits. I felt they wrote those in a little bit better in the first three movies. But in this one, it's almost like so disjointed that it's kind of like, it would take me back a bit, like, oh, okay, all right, he just suddenly changed. Like, the scene in particular where, like, they're sinking through the sand pits, and all of a sudden Marion decides this is a good time to tell you that Mud is your son.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, he goes from, like, a scared, like, oh my God, like, we're about to die, like, hey, just stay, keep your arms up, whatever. And all of a sudden she's like, oh, hey, Henry's your son. And then all of a sudden he turns to, like, arguing with her. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like,
why did you make him finish school?
yeah, why did you make him finish school? Yeah, even though like 2 seconds earlier he was like, some people aren't cut out for school. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, he just becomes like he cares, at that point.
Well, we could. I think that's actually smarter than it is at face value, because like let's talk about how we're talking right now. We're talking through the internet. On the internet, when you want to say some bullshit anonymously, you don't care who's receiving it. You don't give a shit. But when you realize that you might be talking about your family or your friends, or you might be talking to, let's say, your boss anonymously, and then they find out it's you, all of a sudden you really care how you're perceived at that point. And I mean, I think they really start hammering home the, like, being a parent changes you.
Yeah.
Selectively. I mean, I actually don't know if you had kids, Stoy. Do you?
No, I don't know.
But like I'm not going to say Corey is a 180 difference between now and Riley and Ryan's birth. But he was definitely a different dude then. Like it was definitely different podcasting with him pre-child than it was post-child. But that's because, major life events somewhat changing, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, when kids are introduced, it definitely makes you think about things differently, honestly. Like, I mean, it's part of life, I think. It's just part of realizing where your responsibilities should lie. And, I mean, I still think I probably struggle with that in some aspects of life, but also, like, it makes you just think about things differently. And, yeah, I mean, in that instance, he went from not caring, him being a kind of like a loner, to all of a sudden having a kid that, and that probably flipped a switch in his brain, right? And
right, yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought there were some things they could have done better with that, but overall, I feel like he was most of the time right back into the, he's scrappy, which kind of comes with the clumsiness, I feel like, and him being older, I feel like kind of plays into the clumsiness of being older and trying to still be scrappy like he was in the early movies, right? So I don't know. I don't know if it came off that way or not, but that's something I kind of thought about while I was watching it. But I do agree with you in some aspects, Stoy, where like it just, some of this stuff just didn't hit right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on to the next character, Mac, who was introduced in that kind of that first scene at the military base, played by Ray Winstone. Who, Mac is kind of he's just kind of like this wild card character that's, I don't know, I kind of liked him. He's kind of, obviously he was kind of turned on Indy in that opening scene, and then he tried to play it off like he didn't really do it, but then he ended up really doing it and cost him at the end. But I kind of like this character. He's kind of got that, like, that accent that just kind of makes you laugh and is kind of cartoonish and whatever. What do you guys think about Mac?
I like the way Mac's written. I don't think they execute on a lot of it as well as they would have if they had done this closer to Last Crusade.
Yeah.
I just think a lot of, I mean, as was covered earlier, a lot of time has passed. Like, I think almost 20 years since, or maybe just over 20 years since Last Crusade at this point.
I think it was 15 years, yeah.
I think it was...
No, wait, well more than that. Yeah.
Well, between Last Crusade and Crystal Skull, I think it's 20 years.
It was 19.
19. Okay, got it.
So they came out in 89.
Yeah.
So I think that I mean, I like Ray Winstone as an actor. I think he's been in a lot of really fantastic films. And I don't think he's wasted here at all. But I think there's probably a little too many twists. And I think that... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's always like kind of like a weird, like, this man betrayed you for the first half of the movie, and then all of a sudden, like, all is forgiven.
Yeah.
And then you become best friends again. It's just okay.
All because he's going, it's just like Berlin.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. You're my best friend again.
He's like, oh yeah, Berlin when we were homies. Yeah.
You remember Dad? Yeah, I remember Dad. We're best friends again. How can I stay mad at you?
You brought up Berlin. Awesome.
Even though you got me captured and I got tortured by the Soviets, you can forget about that.
Yeah.
Bygones be bygones. Water under the bridge.
Yeah.
All those sayings.
Dust in the wind.
All those sayings.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really kind of enjoyed him. I do agree with you, Matt, though. Like if this came out even like 4 or 5 years after Last Crusade, it probably could have been done. I don't think it would have come off as cheesy and over the top. And you know what I mean? So we're gonna move on. Irina Spalko, played by Cate Blanchett. Like I said earlier, I did not buy her at all as a Soviet bad guy.
I mean, it's too cartoony.
Yeah.
It's way too cartoony.
Yeah. This is definitely the most kind of stereotype cartoon kind of character. At the beginning, when she was like kind of leading to the ending where she becomes just like, when she's in the room with the aliens and kind of just disintegrates, right? Because it's the Last Crusade going for the Cup of Christ pit thing to 1,000, right? It's so over the top, so not even close to being well done as it was in the Last Crusade, right? And so I don't know. Every scene she was in, I was kind of annoyed, actually.
Yeah.
Because Stoy, like you said, like when Indiana Jones was being Indiana Jones archaeologist person looking at maps and solving puzzles, those were the best parts of the entire movie, right? Where like they're in the cell, or even when they're on the site and they find the skull behind the Spanish people that died, right? And they he took the sword and cut open the bag to get behind him. I don't want to keep borrowing your knife.
Yeah, right.
But every scene she was in, I was just annoyed.
Yeah.
So,
and that's one of those things, because a lot of the Russian cronies were all Russian actors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand why they wouldn't just, because it's not uncommon to like have, actors, kind of learn different accents. Right. How many times is, Gerard Butler pulled off an American accent, or even like, what's his name? Robert Downey Jr. pulling off a British accent for Sherlock Holmes. Like, you could take a level of study and like really try to nail down the accent and really do a good job. But yeah, something about Cate Blanchett, which I think she's a phenomenal actress.
Let's not mince those words at all.
Yeah,
definitely not. Like that, and that's why it was like I agree with you, Matt. She's cartoony in a way, just like the cartoony villain of just like oh, I am mad Russian woman and I'm going to kill you, Dr. Jones. Like, oh boy.
That was a better accent than she did.
Well, I've lived around Eastern European Balkan people, so even for me listening to that, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said earlier, my wife's whole family, they're Ukrainian, and so like her mom talk in Russian when they talk to each other, right? I mean, it was just bad. You know, the example I kept thinking of, I think Matt's frozen. Look at his face. He looks like, yeah.
Yeah.
But Mickey Rourke.
No, he's still there.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Like Mickey Rourke in Iron Man 2. I felt like that was a decent attempt at a Russian accent and portrayal, right? And that was 2 years after this. But yeah, I didn't buy it. And I think having the Russian actors around her made it exponentially worse.
Yeah.
Like, it makes it worse 100%. I don't think necessarily Mickey Rourke's is better. I think it is
it's less cartoony.
It's an actor of lesser talent reaching further, whereas this is Cate Blanchett. Like, I believe at this point, multiple Oscar-winning Cate Blanchett, who is a phenomenal actress already, and she's essentially punching down at this role and missing more than she's hitting.
Yeah.
Like, I think honestly, like, I'm surprised. Like, Mickey Rourke's accent in Iron Man 2, right? Is impressive. Whereas, and it's because Mickey Rourke I don't think he's that great of an actor.
No, I don't.
Or at least I don't like movies he's acted in near as much as I've liked Cate Blanchett. I mean, all of these folks, regardless of whether or not they have speaking roles in film, they can act better than I can because they're getting paid for it,
Right.
and they've shown an aptitude for that. But yeah.
Yeah.
No, I always I'm really impressed because one of the hardest accents I would imagine would be to try to nail like a South African accent. And I always think back to Blood Diamond, the movie with Digimon
DiCaprio.
Honsu, yeah, and DiCaprio.
And
And DiCaprio nailed that South African accent. And like even just when I watched the movie, I heard this man studied for hours, worked with linguistic coaches, and just had a team of people around him. And he would just practice and practice and practice and practice. And like, because obviously Leonardo DiCaprio takes his roles very seriously. And he really nailed it. And to the point where it's like, if this was the first time I was interacting with him, and if he was talking to me that way, I totally believe it. Even like Laura Bailey, when she played as, why am I drawing a blank? She played as that South African mercenary in Uncharted 4.
Nadine.
Nadine, yeah. Like, she even nailed that. Like, I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, like, I don't know, the stunt she was doing.
Plus, we don't know how we also don't know how cartoony Spielberg and the people behind the film wanted this.
I do want to point out that George Lucas was heavily involved in the production of this, which he wasn't the previous 3 films, because he wanted to be involved in an Indiana Jones movie, and so
I think he still owns the rights to it, doesn't he?
No,
Pretty
Disney does still.
Well, at that point he did.
Oh, at that point he did, yeah. And he wasn't,
right, yeah.
Obviously the Star Wars prequels were over and he wasn't really doing anything, right? So, yeah, and
definitely wasn't doing anything right.
Got him.
And I think there was actually some conflict with Spielberg and him on set at certain points because, you know, obviously the first 3 films.
Surprising nobody.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I was going to say, I always heard those two never see eye to eye.
Yeah, but they're like best friends. So.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what makes them best friends, I guess, because I think they both challenge each other. Because Spielberg is very much like I said earlier, he was very particular about how he wanted this movie to be shot.
Yeah. And
how he wanted this movie to come across. And George Lucas was very, very specific about how he wanted the story to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know,
we've got all these computers now, Steven, but George, it doesn't look like film. But computers, but film.
Steven, like, everybody believed in aliens in the 50s, so we got to put it in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that too is like, I don't mind the concept of aliens being the premise of the story, right? I mean, obviously Temple of Doom was like, what's the difference between like a a god that sets your body on fire and your heart, goes up in flames while your body's burning 100 feet down underneath you. But like,
and you're still talking.
And yeah, exactly. You're still screaming at the top of your lungs. Yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting the fantastical nature of Indiana Jones and the whole like, aliens thing, because we do have to believe that there's a large contingent of people that, Ancient Aliens is like a very popular show on History Channel. And it cracks me up watching that, because like when we think, who the hell built the pyramids? Who the hell built these large structures with like man-made objects? Like, oh, it's got to be aliens. So I think George Lucas and the writing team like took advantage of those theories and decided to make it into a movie, and then have Indiana Jones find this alien tomb. Yeah. I mean, like, I agree with you. We could have done without that friggin' ending.
For some reason, I thought this film predated a lot of that.
No, I think it was like right at the zeitgeist of like popularity of Ancient Aliens and stuff. Because I remember watching a lot of this with the girl I was dating at the time around this time, and it was like aliens and ancient Egypt aliens and Mayan aliens and where do these pyramids come from, and like even today, like my wife and I still watch some things on Ancient Aliens. So not Ancient Aliens, but like
who's that Greek guy with the big hair and stuff like that?
Yeah. No, actually it originally started March 8th 2009.
Well, there are other alien shows on there, right?
I wasn't. Sure. I mean, I'm not saying it's.
I wasn't thinking
the Greek gentleman is Georgios Tsoukalos.
There you go. That's it. Right. I wasn't thinking like they took the themes of the TV show into. Sure. But I was thinking. No, I was saying in terms of like
Ancient Aliens didn't. The whole idea didn't start March 8th, 2009. That it existed. Yeah. Plenty of time before then.
Yeah. So I think once travel started to kind of hit at a high, and people are like, who the hell would build these large structures? I guess one of the first things is like, well, aliens. How about aliens? So,
yeah. We don't, and this is where like I get in the 50s there was a lot of alien fear just because of Roswell.
Yeah.
That's the modern American conspiracy theory, but also like
aliens.
We can't just put a little faith in the people that live there. Like we can't.
Nope.
We can't.
Nope.
It has to be. And that's what I find infuriating. Like it's just no. we would rather believe people came from far, far away than not white people. Like that's very frustrating.
All right. Well, speaking of white people, Karen Allen reprises her role as Marion Ravenwood. I really liked seeing her back, even if she wasn't as, badass as she was in Raiders, right? But I really enjoyed seeing her come back and her coming in and kind of
when you raise a kid like Mutt, you probably lose some of your badassness along the way.
Yeah, he would take the piss out of her every now and then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, even like the introductory scene where she walks out of that tent and she does that whole Indiana Jones, like total fan service there in that of just like, the same exact thing she said, the first line that she said to Harrison Ford's character, in Raiders.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones, and almost the same tone. So obviously we can totally get that Karen Allen still has the chops to act.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. She was. I really just enjoyed seeing her in this role again and kind of bringing him down a peg. And they're both older, but there's both still like they're in love with each other, but they like hate each other at the same time. And it was fun. So. I would have liked
the whole dynamic of just like them hating, like he ghosted her apparently, and got her and knocked her up, and then just kind of just quote unquote disappeared, even though he really didn't go anywhere. He just was like, I'm just gonna go back to teaching and probably not call you, and then all of a sudden, she like lays into him like, you ghosted me, you left me, and now I got this kid and I've raised him by myself and not even tell you for like 20 some years or whatever. And then it comes to a point where at the end they're just getting married. Like, okay, cool.
I mean, them getting married at the end is probably the least stretch for me here.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that. I mean, clearly, they are surrounded by Russian soldiers when they meet again, and clearly they're both in significant danger. But all of that melts away just because they're back together again.
Yeah.
I like the way that comes off. I like that throughout this movie, she is more of a foil for Indiana Jones than anybody else trying to foil Indiana Jones in this movie. I still think, sure, character Marion Ravenwood may have lost a step, but doesn't mean she's still awesome. Or she's still not awesome, because she's very awesome in this movie.
No, I think her inclusion in the story showed that obviously she was a very well beloved character, because obviously in the end, with the other three, it was kind of like we talked about it before, where it was like a James Bond universe where every film had a different main female protagonist, or antagonist in the case of Last Crusade. So, I'm glad that they brought her back, because obviously she became very pivotal to the story. And she was the only one really that challenged Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones's character, really challenged him.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. All right. Well, I guess we are moving on to Mutt Williams.
Ugh.
AKA Henry Jones III.
He can't be the third because he has a different last name. It's not how that works.
That's not true.
It's not how that works.
No,
Henry the third.
He took his stepdad's last name in the movie. If you were paying attention, when they were in the truck.
And that's what I'm saying. He can't be Henry the third then.
Well, actually, he can be, because
then just call him Henry.
You name yourself whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah. As told in these films, you can name yourself and just be perfectly fine.
I can change my name to Henry Jones III. I am not a Jones. I am not the third Jones. But we have the technology.
No, according to Indiana Jones lore, you would have to name yourself Bagel Kiel, because they name each other after dogs. So.
What do you think about that, Bagel? He's tired. He's snoring.
So, unlike you guys, I feel like I liked him a lot in this role, just because it was. I mean, you still got a little bit of that screamy Transformers Shia LaBeouf in here, but I actually thought he was pretty good in this role. I like when he shows up. I like how he really played off of Harrison Ford. I like his kind of, he's Marion's son. I really liked how he played off of the characters, and I liked how he helped solve some puzzles, and I liked how he went on this adventure. I liked him in this movie, aside from a few things like I mentioned earlier, him swinging through the vines. The comb thing was a little much. Every scene he combed his hair. I'm going to go ahead and say that was a directorial opinion of probably George Lucas being on set at that point. I bought it. So,
okay.
I mean, I know you guys have different opinions, but.
Well, no, that's a product of the time, the greaser.
Yeah,
obviously the greaser guy, that was made apparent in the West Side Story throwdown in the bar.
Yeah,
and he was part of that whole rebellious teen, kind of, I don't want to say subgenre, but class of people that was greasers that just really just combed their hair all the time, leather jacket, motorcycle riding, whatever. So
yeah.
It makes sense.
I mean, yeah, it made sense if you wanted. Like, it almost feels like they're. Jeez, I don't want to say. I don't. It almost feels like they're trying to go for a motif rather than a character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And in 2008 when I saw this, I didn't know who Shia LaBeouf was.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would have asked Matt in 2008, like, kid's annoying, but no, he didn't really do a disservice. It's just all of the shit that Shia LaBeouf has done since. Like, he's been kind of an asshole on several occasions, and that kind of, I mean, at that point it's just like, well, let him be the character. I'm like, no, I see Shia LaBeouf's face. He doesn't embody anything else. He's just a dickhead with a leather jacket and a comb. Oh, he can ride a bicycle. He can ride a motorcycle. Ooh, never seen that one before. But but yeah, I think that it's definitely. They're just going for a motif rather than a character for me. I'm not trying to be like grand and proclaimy about it, but that's just what it feels like to me.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, like, I feel like I keep bringing up the comb thing, but I feel like they could have done that like once or twice and gotten the point across, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he does it. I think I counted like 8 or 9 times in this movie. It's like, okay, this movie is not even 2 hours long, and he does it 8 or 9 times, and he doesn't even show up till like a half hour later. So you're telling me he does it like every, on average, like every 9 minutes, he's combing his hair. Like that, I don't need that, you know.
Well, even in like the scene where like he's got like he's being held at gunpoint, or like the sword, whatever that Kate Blanchett's character pulls out the sword, and he's like, whoa, lady, and then pulls out the comb and starts combing it. Like, really, dude, is that the time?
You're going to comb your hair while your neck is being threatened with a long rapier sword, right? I mean,
yeah, no kidding.
Man. Also, the whole fencing thing on the vehicles in the jungle, the whole jungle scene just didn't really do it for me. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But then like he's like straddling these, vehicles, which I get kind of, obviously in other movies, Indiana Jones did that in a couple scenes, right? But like those were like a couple like 5 or 10 second scenes. This was like a whole scene where he's doing this for like a good 5 or 10 minutes.
All it would take was the driver for that other vehicle to just pull a little bit to the right.
Yeah.
And there goes Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Because he was the one that wasn't positioned well.
Yeah.
He was the one that was doing a Jean-Claude Van Damme in between vehicles.
Yeah.
Kate Blanchett's character was like on firm ground, so all that guy needed to look over and be like, a little pull to the right. Okay, that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would have...
You failed us, Russians. You failed us.
I mean, it would have been funny for like...
This is why you lost the Cold War.
In like a... Yeah. In like a 5-second scene where like, oh, I'm all of a sudden straddling cars, and then I got to jump to the other car, right? But he never jumps to the other car, Yeah.
Well, I also think that these things work in terms of spectacle, but not. I mean, again, once you start thinking about them, you're just like, come on now, really?
Yeah. No, I get it. But then like he's straddling the car, and then he gets caught in a vine, and then he gets caught up in this like huge collection of monkeys, and now he's gonna swing back to the cars. Like, what was this detour the cars took to where he could take his time? And how he all of a sudden knew how to swing on vines, like, Tarzan or whatever. And like,
he watched the monkeys for like 2 seconds, and he was like, "I can do that."
Yeah.
I mean, I get like, I get conceptually, like, okay, I could swing from a vine technically, but like, he's doing it like a professional gymnast in like a circus act, and I'm like, I don't think you could just do that in your leather jacket and your motorcycle boots,
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say you're probably right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert on vine swinging, but
Yeah.
I would imagine that's not something you could just pick up within a couple seconds.
Yeah.
No.
And then like to do it, to get to where the cars were as fast as he did too, right? Like I want to know what route did the cars take out of the jungle for him to be, them to like pull up right as he was swinging out of the jungle, just,
This movie's really weird.
Yeah, I know.
Really weird.
Like this is what I'm talking about. Though, the last
because Indiana Jones is very fantastical. It has very fantastical, way out there stunts. But this took it to another level that even like the diehards are like, I don't know about that.
I mean, I probably don't. I have like zero problems with this. The first 2/3 of the movie, right? I actually think it's a pretty good Indiana Jones movie. But then, like, when you get to this scene, and then they go, like, he swings, and then you have the red ants scene, right? Which is like, I don't know if that's real or not. I don't know if there's killer ants that just eat people, like they gather up,
not
and eat
to that
people
extent,
and drag them into their anthills or whatever.
Not to that extent.
Yeah. And then like you get into like the waterfall scene where like, okay, I can buy Marion driving off the cliff and landing on the tree and then them lowering down into the river, right? Okay. That's a Temple of Doom.
No, I can't. Maybe you can.
I mean, I'm like, okay, this is more believable than the Temple of Doom airplane scene, right? That's anytime something weird happens, I'm like, okay, well, is it weirder than Temple of Doom? No, okay, we're gonna move forward. But then like you go down 3 huge waterfalls, right? Like like Niagara Falls size waterfalls, and you all survive and not injured, and like nobody got injured. They didn't lose the skull. They didn't lose each other, right? And then they turn around and they're all of a sudden, oh, we're where we're supposed to be. Here we are. Like this is where the movie kind of turns for me, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the rest of these characters. Okay, John Hurt plays Harold Oxley, who is an interesting character. Go ahead, Matt.
I like this character a lot. Mainly because for some reason, in terms of an absolutely batshit crazy story, like, of course, the choice to have this character in it, as well as it ends up being the eye of this hurricane.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, like, I'm in another Indiana Jones plot in an alternate timeline. This is even more bullshit than it already is.
Yeah.
But I am okay with everything that's going on here with John Hurt's character. He rules. Yeah. I will allow this.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing else makes sense. And meanwhile, the crazy person's like, oh, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because of course it is. Of course this is how it goes in this movie. What about you, Stoy?
I mean, he was fine. He plays the kind of like the possessed, like, whatever, just the the crazy old hermit that has these like little moments of like, intelligence, but then he goes back to like, oh, I'm a bumbling idiot. Hey, go get help. Help? Okay, I'll go get help. And he goes and brings like the Soviets. Like,
yeah.
Is now are you an idiot, or are you just kind of, yeah? So like, I like that kind of dynamic because I like and hate it because what was I saying earlier, that I don't like all the dynamics that Harrison Ford goes through with Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. And this guy is kind of the same thing, but I think his is a more believable story arc in the story because like he was once like he was a professor or something like that, or he was like he was a pretty intelligent guy, but like the skull kind of possessed him to the point where he's now kind of like a
the skull did its thing in a way that would melt Cate Blanchett later in the film, but he just gets a little nuts.
Just goes a little crazy, yeah. So I believe
they give him a touch of the dementia here.
Yeah.
To be fair, Cate Blanchett got annihilated by like 13 of these things that morphed into one.
Well, I thought that was just the skull coming to form, right?
What?
Like the skull kind of encompassed all.
They were Captain Planeting on Cate Blanchett there with our mental skull powers combined.
Yeah.
I
was thinking of the Wonder Twins. Wonder Twins power activated.
I mean, like I said, the whole end of this movie is just really stupid.
Yeah, it really is.
But
it really is. 100%.
I mean, I was along for the ride Right, and I just accepted the end of the movie because, of course, aliens. There's a spaceship under this Mayan pyramid. Why not? But
Yeah.
Man, you
All
know,
the water
I
washes
just
over.
wish
Wow,
they did,
it's like an eraser on a pencil. Just they've never been here now.
yeah,
you know, I just wish they ended it. I wish they just ended it with them in the kind of pantheon of like, you know, all these, you know, thrones of alien skulls and skeletons. They could have just ended it there, and then maybe have some like, you know, oh yeah, now, you know, Kate Blanchett's burned alive, kind of similar to what we've seen in Last Crusade about picking the wrong cup, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, obviously taking the, you know, opening the Ark of the Covenant, so to speak. But that whole like spaceship scene, man, I was like,
the room, like when the room started spinning, is where I kind of checked out. Right.
Yeah.
And then they were like diving into the archway to try to like do some kind of dumbass Mario platforming, jump through the hole before the thing knocks you over type thing. He was like, oh my God, I'm checked out here. I'll wait till the wedding scene.
Yeah, right. No kidding. And then Shia LaBeouf trying to pick up the hat.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah. I totally forgot about
Thank
that scene
God.
too. It gave me a good chuckle though. I do.
I breathed a sigh of relief in the theater. I was like, oh, thank God. They're not passing the mantle.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that
Not
scene,
yet.
by the way.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, a couple other characters. We don't have to really talk a lot about them. Jim Broadbent played Charles Stanforth, who's like the dean of the school that Indiana Jones works at, right? And a lot of people might know him from the later Harry Potter movies. He plays a big role in there. I don't really know what else he's been in, but he kind of took the place
dude's
of...
had a long acting career. He's had a real long acting career.
Yeah, I would say he kind of takes place of Marcus Brody.
Marcus Brody, yeah.
Which, hilariously, there's a statue of him and the head lands in, I think, Shia LaBeouf's lap at some point because they were riding the motorcycle through the
cars.
school.
The Soviets that were chasing him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny. I kind of laughed. He was only in the movie for a few minutes, but he kind of filled that role, and it was pretty okay in that role. And then Igor Chijikani played Dovchenko, who was the kind of like the main, like the right hand man of Kate Blanchett's character.
Bruiser.
Yeah, he the fight scene.
He's the one that gets eaten by the ants, right?
Yeah. But that like he was pretty brutal. That fight scene between him and Harrison Ford was pretty.
That was that was my favorite part of the movie because that's old school Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah,
there.
that's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at. Is that was hands down kind of him fighting the German outside the plane of Raiders, right? Very, very classic Indiana Jones. Very good. So.
Yeah, because in every one he's fighting some big bruiser dude, you know, and just getting his shit kicked in. But like, you know, finding that upper hand at some point at the end where he just like, lays him out with this big ass tree trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Very, very good. So those are kind of the main characters of this film. Any other thoughts on scenes, favorite or worst scenes, favorite or worst moments of the movie? I mean, we kind of covered a lot of it. Any other comments on this movie before we kind of get into the ranking, I would say?
You know, what I wanted more of from this movie was the kind of like with Raiders of the Lost Ark, there wasn't, you know, there was like these big bombastic action sequences, but there was a lot of kind of mystery solving. There was a lot of investigating. There was a lot of, me personally, I maybe wanted a little bit more of that, but a little bit more intrigue, because when I watched this movie a second time, I was left asking like, wait, how does that work? Wait, how did that happen? Wait, wait. Like a lot of things, like the kind of mystery part of it didn't make sense to me. Like for example, the gate that opens when you put the skull in there. Like, how did that come to be? And even like the whole the skull is constantly magnetized, but it's only magnetized sometimes.
Yeah.
like I'm like, I don't wait. There's
Which,
just
as far as I know about magnets, they're never really not.
You can't turn them off.
Magnetic.
Really?
You can't turn magnets off. So like a lot of that is just like, okay, all right, Shia LaBeouf dangles his knife in front of it, and it zaps up, and whatever, and then he just pulls it off like it's no big deal, and that's it. Like what? So I wish there was a little bit of like, you don't have to like explain everything. You could leave a lot of things up to the imagination, which is what I thought Raiders of the Lost Ark was really good at. Is just like it gives you enough to kind of leave you questioning and leave you kind of like maybe making it up in your own head. So you don't need to explain everything to me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like, hey, did you see this? Did you notice this kind of reference? Did you notice this? Did you pick up on this type thing in this movie? And I noticed it more this time watching it than I did previously, probably because this is kind of the first time I've watched them all back to back to back in like a more confined kind of, really paying attention, right? And so, who's waving? What's happening? Who's behind me?
Oh, no, you cut out on my end. So.
Oh, did I?
Mine too.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, I didn't cut out on my end.
I heard
Matt and I were looking at each other like, hello.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, what I was saying is like, there's a lot of like, did you notice this reference? Did you see this reference? Did you catch this Easter egg from the older movies? Like,
yeah.
I thought the one that I liked the most was just him having a picture of Sean Connery on his desk at the beginning. Like, I was like, that's a nice callback. Okay, that lets you know, like, okay, well, he's not going to be in this movie. He's dead. Or
Does he have one of Brody as well, or is Brody just mentioned?
I
right
think
next to it.
It's right next.
It was
to
right.
it.
It was right. It was right next to it, and
Okay.
it was It was like right to the left. I think I remember.
Yeah. And it just kind of was like a nice reminder of like, oh, okay, well, this is where we've come from. Here's where we're going, whatever. But then, there's the other things that are just like stupid. I can't really name them off the top of my head at this moment, but like they were there. I'm gonna just Stoy brought some up earlier, and I think Matt brought one up earlier too. But like, I don't know. Overall, I felt like this was fun. I like Matt said, if you turn your brain off and just kind of enjoy it for what it is, and you go in with kind of low expectations, they're gonna probably exceed your low expectations of this movie. The ending is pretty bad. The wedding is kind of fun, but also like, I don't know, 25 years too late, probably.
Why even do it at that point?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I just
especially like if you're planning this fifth movie and I don't know, Karen Allen or Shia LaBeouf aren't in this movie, like what are you doing at this point?
Yeah. Karen Allen's not in this movie, is she?
No, not according to the the Google cast list, I guess you would say.
What? How the hell are they going to write that in? Or are they going to say like, oh, she died? Like, okay,
I hope
all right,
not.
just write her off like that. Yeah.
I feel like maybe she's just not going on the adventure. I bet she's in the movie for, like at the beginning or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, that would be nice. At least put her in for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, oh, going on another adventure. All right. Have fun.
Yeah. So
Wear a coat.
Yeah.
No, she tosses him his fedora out as he's walking out the door. So, all right, guys, it's time to place this movie on our rankings list. Our current list is as follows: The Last Crusade at number 1, Raiders number 2,
Correct.
and
Correct.
Temple of Doom at number 3.
Correct.
It's definitely, I think we can all agree it's not better than Last Crusade.
100%.
Definitely
100%.
not better than Raiders. I think the big question is it
100%.
better? Is it better than Temple of Doom or not? That's the question here.
I thought about this just today, actually, because Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are very much similar than that a lot of people like to believe in terms of Indiana Jones's character, because even in Temple of Doom, he's kind of like a bumbling doofus sometimes. He has these moments where he's like, he's just kind of barely making it through there. And, a lot of times we chalk that up to, he's just this is a prequel, so maybe he's not as seasoned as as like maybe Raiders or in, Last Crusade, but they're kind of similar in a way in terms of like his character. And I really kind of struggled with, like, I guess which one is technically the better one. I mean, I guess ultimately in the end, I think Temple of Doom is better, but that's like my opinion.
I think in the prior 3 episodes of this, I had talked the most shit on Temple of Doom. But I had not seen Crystal Skull since 2008.
Yeah,
I've seen
same.
Temple of Doom at least 3 times since then. At least, I mean, and that's a ballpark guess. I could be way off, but I could probably go another 13 years and not watch this film again. I think it is fun. I think it is. I think it's better if you turn your brain off here. You don't necessarily have to turn your brain off in Temple of Doom. I mean, you can recognize that it's absurd. You can sort of analyze it. Fine. But here it's just like there's some audacity to an ultimately silly degree here more than there is in Temple of Doom. So I think I'm going to put Crystal Skull at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. Because like I said, I think it kind of like I said, there was, I agree with you. There is a little bit more seriousness and I guess a little bit more, I don't know, like less campiness. But I agree. Like if you turn your brain off, like what Corey said, bubblegum for the brain, just have a good time watching a really fun swashbuckling Indiana Jones adventure. Like then it's a good movie. But like if you wanted to kind of really deep dive into it, especially if you're a longtime Indiana Jones fan, like we all are, it's a tougher pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my vote doesn't really matter then. This is at the bottom. I don't know. I guess I'm glad it doesn't matter because I am actually really struggling on where to put this movie. Just because like I am not a fan of Temple of Doom. If I'm rewatching these movies, I kind of sometimes skip Temple of Doom, to be honest, just because like it's super. It's compared to Raiders and Last Crusade. It's just weird, It's just like
it really is.
It's just really weird, and I don't like I don't like what's her face in that movie. Like I like Short Round, but like what's her name? Billy just like really bothers me.
Or Willie or whatever.
Willie, yeah, whatever. She really bothers me in that movie, and like just the kid stuff is weird, and I don't know. It's just that movie's weird. So like, well, I mean, you could compare. I mean, I think the one thing that's consistent here is if any of us are asked the question, "Hey, you want to watch an Indiana Jones movie?" We know which 2 we're picking. Yeah.
We'll probably say Raiders, or we'll probably say Last Crusade.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But like getting back to what Stoy was saying, and you're kind of tagging on it here, like Willie is Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Short Round is Karen Ravenwood.
Yeah.
Or Marion Ravenwood did Karen Allen. See what I did there?
Yeah.
And all of the, I mean, and Motorom is Cate Blanchett at this point, except better acted and more appropriately casted.
Yeah.
So I think we have our tiers split correctly. I mean, I think ultimately whoever is going to rank these however they want. If you're saying Temple of Doom or Crystal Skull is the best one, we have some questions for you.
Here,
we do.
Here's my. Just thinking about this while you're talking. Here's my final kind of conclusion. Temple of Doom better movie in terms of story, consistency, ending, that kind of thing. If I were to rewatch something, I would probably choose this over Temple of Doom, personally.
Okay.
But
Fine.
again, doesn't matter. Temple of Doom has been voted in the third place spot. And this, as predicted, probably by 99.9% of our audience, is last. So
well, and a lot of things, like, I mean, we dogged on this movie a lot, but there was a lot of good elements to this that I really feel we overshadowed with a lot of the negative stuff. Like it's like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of these like great investigation like moments where like Indiana Jones was Indiana Jones. There was the fight scene in the ant farm area that was like, hugely classic Indiana Jones, or even like the nods to the old films to appease all of us old fans. There was a lot of good moments in this, but they were far outshadowed by, kind of the ones that were like, Yeah.
And I mean, I think the opening scene until you get to the fridge is actually pretty good. Like, I think the whole, sorry, Miles is crying. I'm sorry, everybody. It'll be fine. Edit it and post. He's like, I just think that opening scene is fun. I think it's really cool, and the chasing them through the warehouse, and like
it's a good way to open the movie. Honestly,
it was a great way to open the movie, and it just, and I really actually appreciated the real opening where like they used the font that they used from the 80s and like really kind of opened it like an Indiana Jones movie. Like it was to the point where like they used the Paramount logo from the 80s, and I thought that I put the wrong disc in. And I really appreciated that authenticity, and like the race at the beginning felt pretty natural to the film, right? I don't know why it was included. It didn't really add anything, but like I really like the opening of the movie, and so there are good things in this movie, but I feel like the good things are good, but the bad things are really bad. And that is kind of what people remember of this movie, is like the bad things were bad, So, well, there you have it. There's our definitive ranking. Last Crusade first, Raiders of the Lost Ark second, Temple of Doom third, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull last. Now, before we get out of here, I kind of want to take like 5 minutes or so and talk about Indiana Jones 5 is coming up next year, 2023.
2020,
as of this recording, I don't really want to date the show, really, but, do we expect this movie to be good at all? I mean, I know the director directed Logan. He's directed some things that people like a lot. I have some faith in that. He knows how to deal with a character who's kind of aging out of the role, I guess you would say. I hope that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't really like. I feel like not that she's like a bad producer or anything, but like Star Wars has kind of had its ups and downs, right? And I just kind of hope that they let Mangold do his thing in this movie. I mean, the cast list is pretty interesting to say the least, right? Harrison Ford, obviously. Mads Mikkelsen is in this movie. Antonio Banderas is in this movie. Toby Jones is in this movie, right?
I'm excited to see Mads Mikkelsen. Like, honestly, I think he's awesome at everything he's in.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I think I first saw him in King Arthur, with Clive Owen, and he was, I forget what character, I forget who he was, but he was really good in that. And I was like, this guy is amazing. Like, who is this guy? And yeah, sure enough, he just kept getting better and better. I just, what I've always seen with some films these days is that in order to pave the way for new characters, which is one of the main problems I had with the new Star Wars films, is that in order to pave the way for the new generation, they have to kill off, or not necessarily just kill off, but to just like kind of almost like downplay or like knock down the old characters. Like it still bugs me to the point of like how they treated Luke Skywalker like he's just some fucking grumpy ass hermit. You know, like you could have like written him off in a much better fashion than that. If you're gonna kill off a character, like kill him off in a way that, you know, it's like kind of like honorable or like honors the memory. So what I hope they don't do with this film is knock Indiana Jones down to a point where he is just like a bumbling fool. I want Indiana Jones to be Indiana Jones. I don't care how old he is. You could turn him into, maybe he's not a guy that does like wild and crazy stunts. Maybe you could turn him into a more like a mentor or a teacher or something like that. But I just really hope that they don't knock him down into like this embarrassing old man that's like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. I kind of
That's
hope
my main worry.
I kind of hope they do more of like we're actually searching for a relic and we have to solve puzzles type adventure in this, which I get. There's going to be action. It's an Indiana Jones movie, right? There's going to be punching and whipping and shooting and driving, right? Like there's going to be all that stuff. But like, I hope they take the time to realize that Harrison Ford is old and they move the movie in that direction. And like, this is like his last hurrah in terms of, we got to find this thing because it's really dangerous if it gets into the Nazis or the Soviets' hands, right? That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Which, I mean, I don't mind if they keep with the Soviet thing. Like, I mean,
I don't
obviously, as
either.
he's getting older, if this movie moves into the late 50s or 60s, like, keep the Soviet thing. Like, we need, obviously, that big bad menace that's, like, trying to chase after, you know, the West and stuff like that. That's, you know, why the Nazis were so compelling villains or, you know, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if the Nazis will have something to do with this, though, because it does seem like I feel like they might be going to South America, right? With, you know, not to like kind of pigeonhole these actors into some kind of stereotype role, but Antonio Banderas, right, is in this movie. I wonder if he's going to be like a contact or even a villain, right? He was the villain in the Uncharted movie, right? So like,
right, yeah,
you know, something there. If the Nazis, like, they're playing off the story where the legend where like the Nazis ended up in Argentina instead of dying off or whatever, right? You know, they have some South American actors in this, so I just wonder if that's where they're headed, if they're going to move back to the Nazis instead of the Soviets. But that's one thing I can say about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I actually thought the Soviets were like a natural progression of you know. So
yeah, I think here's what I would like, and this is why I would like it. I would like somewhere about first third of the movie, we see Indiana Jones take a tumble and start rethinking how he needs to go forward, and then finish the mission with a lot more help this time out. I don't want to say I want it to be something where like he's hobbled and they're kind of carrying him along the entire time, because I think that'll get very tired very fast.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the final third, there's going to be a moment where he does the Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon. I'm getting too old for this shit. And, you know, it's time for me to retire.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a natural progressive handoff to possibly lead them to keep, you know, not necessarily the Indiana Jones name, but there's going to be like this is what we'll do for the next thing.
Yeah.
Right.
This is how we'll move this sort of James Bond-ish narrative forward. Or they just end it there. They'll be like, yeah, I'm done.
Which honestly, I hope they do the latter, what you say. I hope that they can kind of close the chapter and be like, you know, this is done. If they want to maybe, you know, introduce some of his younger work, like when he's like, you know, if there's any like swashbuckling adventures, like resurrecting the young Indiana Jones, like I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
You know, but
I kind of feel like you have to do that at this point, where like, if you want to keep Indiana Jones going, you have to take it back to somewhere in that original trilogy era at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if you go as far back as like young Indiana Jones, but I think you do have to at least cast an actor who has the mannerisms and the ability to portray a Harrison Ford type charisma to take on this role. Like I always thought like, oh, you can probably recast somebody, make him, this would be like a James Bond type thing where every person makes it his own, which I am walking that back. I actually think like you have to have a very specific type of person take on this role, right? And we saw that with Solo, right? Where, say what you want about Alden Ehrenreich or whatever his name was, like he did a decent job, right?
I thought he did good.
Yeah, but like there were some things where you're like, I don't know if Harrison Ford would have done that, but then there were other points where he nailed it, or like Donald Glover in that movie also played, Lando to a T, right? That was that, and so it's not like James Bond where, okay, you just find some kind of suave person to shoot someone or punch someone or kiss the girl or whatever, right? Like it's definitely got to be someone who can nail the role. And I always thought like when they made this movie and I thought this was going to be the last one Harrison Ford was in, I thought like my first pick to play Indiana Jones then would have been Bradley Cooper was my first pick. I know a lot of people were like, Chris Pratt. I'm like, no, I don't like him I don't like him in Jurassic World. Like, I think he's a great Star-Lord, right? But I don't think he needs to. Every funny action person does not need to be Chris Pratt, right? Like, I'm not on the train where like I hate Chris Pratt, like the entire internet seems to. But like, I think he is a very specific type of actor, and not the person you want replacing Harrison Ford in this role, right?
No, I actually agree with you on Bradley Cooper. I think he would be a great fit. I think he toes that line between he can play a very serious role, but like he can also kind of, go off the rails a little bit and be that, just like mimic those same mannerisms that Harrison Ford does. And that's what makes Harrison Ford a great actor is that, you could be a serious investigative type person where you're having a serious conversation about, whatever, and then all of a sudden segue right to,
Yeah,
kind of a doofus, like like the scene where like he's swinging from side to side and just lands in that kind of like driver's seat, and he's like, well, I misjudged that, like I could totally see Bradley Cooper like pulling that off very well.
When like I said, when this movie came out and they were talking about recasting or whatever, that was the first person I thought of would be a great person to fit. But I don't even know how old Bradley Cooper is, but if you're going to reboot it or whatever, like how old is he? Would he be able to do 3 or 4 movies within a 15-year span, Cuz like I don't know if Indiana Jones is going to be a franchise Disney's going to want to pump out every 2 years or whatever.
I think that ship has sailed, honestly.
Yeah, I think the time for that is over.
Yeah. I mean, that's why unless you like completely start over brand new, kind of like with what the Ghostbusters did, where like you can maybe throw in some fan service with it, but but I guess that's different because that's a team of people versus like an icon or one character or one person or whatever. I don't know, it's kind of tough. Like I said, if they said this is the last Indiana Jones we're making and that's it, we're done, like I'd be fine with that.
Same.
Bradley Cooper is 47 years old, by the way. In case anybody cared, I looked it up because I was curious.
Based on Harrison Ford being what, 80 now?
Yeah.
I mean, he could pull it off.
Well,
he's got 33 years.
Yeah.
Ford age.
Stay healthy, Cooper.
Yep.
Stay healthy.
Yeah.
Do your vegan diet like main man Tom Brady.
Well, anything else anybody wants to say before we get out of here?
Or what's his name? I just saw Morbius the other day.
Ooh.
Because my wife has a crush on what's his face in
Jared Leto.
Jared Leto, yeah. And like she reminded me when we left the theater, she was like, he's on a vegan diet, right? I'm like, what are you trying to tell me?
Oh man, he's 50.
Jared Leto, really?
He is 50 years old. Yeah.
Holy cow!
I would have never pegged him to be 15.
I would have never pegged him, dude, man. He had a shirtless scene in that movie, and I was like, wow, all right. I didn't know he was 50. Great, good for him.
Yeah, he looks younger than me, and I'm 35, so great.
Oh boy.
Everybody else on this panel looks younger than me too, so I mean, let's be fair. All right. Well, anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to Indiana Jones in Review. This crew will probably be back at some point to review something else. Hope you enjoyed it. If this is the first episode you're listening to, why was this the first episode you're listening to? You can go back and check out our other episodes on the original trilogy. Check out our other standard definition episodes on MCU, Disney animation. There's some Ghostbusters in there. We're currently ranking Nintendo consoles also, so check those out. Matt,
did we do Ghostbusters 2?
No, we didn't do Ghostbusters 2 yet.
Okay.
No, Ghostbusters was our very first episode, and then we never went back.
Yeah, I know we never went because I was like, I don't remember Ghostbusters 2 ever. Anyway,
yeah. Well, we're gonna get there. We should probably talk to Stephanie about that.
Yeah, right.
But anyways, Stoy, Matt, thank you for your time and your efforts on this series. Matt, where can we find you?
You can find me everywhere I want to be on Twitter or PSN or just about any game playing platform at infinite_rewind. It's also my Instagram handle. I also host or co-host a few other shows. One is called Story Route Zero, where me and 3 friends talk about video games. Another is called Trivial Merit, where myself and my friend Caroline talk about music in the form of making 8-song playlists of an artist or genre to make us and hopefully you feel better. Another is called Free Reeling It, where my friend Jesse and I talk about films very similarly to how we talk about films here. We watch a movie and then talk about it, as well as briefly mention what else we might have watched. The most recent episode there is on Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, and that is a wonderful film you should watch and then listen to us talk about. And then I actually have an update to my repertoire of podcasts, because I have been invited to play a part in what is called the Bald Gun Guy podcast. That is where the premise of the show is they're going through the modern Hitman trilogy one level at a time, nice. Every month. We just released the second level the second proper level of Hitman 2, which is Santa Fortuna. That's my debut, and I plan on sticking around as long as they will have me until we are done with Hitman 3. Corey knows that Hitman is some of my favorite shit in modern gaming, and I do like talking about it, gushing about it, and being a little critical of it. So, yeah.
Nice.
Find me there. Bald Gun Guy, Story Route Zero, Free Reeling It, and Trivial Merit.
Nice. Stoy, where can we find you?
I am the host of the EXP Cast. We're a video game podcast within the Boss Rush Network. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EXP Cast. And then also my personal Twitter and Instagram is Stoy, MKE8. We just recorded like 3 episodes today because we saw the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie this weekend. So we did like a spoiler cast of it that's going up for our Patreon members this week. And then we also did kind of like a video game celebration of all the good and bad Sonic games, because Sonic has had a lot of ups and downs. A lot of ups and downs.
Very true.
So we
definitely a lot of downs.
Yes, we definitely acknowledge that they peaked very early and they dipped very early as well too. So and they kind of got us back with Sonic Mania, where it was like, okay, all right, we're kind of going on the right track, and we're cautiously optimistic for Sonic Frontiers, whatever that's going to shape up to be. So we'll see what happens.
We will definitely see what happens to that. You can find me at I am Corey HD on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me hosting the Boss Rush podcast every Friday on your podcast service of choice. You can also find me on Nintendo Power Block Expansion Pass, and other episodes of Standard Definition. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to Standard Definition. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating. Really appreciate it. We will see you next time on this regularly scheduled program. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.